Good morning. One of the things I love is when a walk begets another walk, and that's what's happened. So for me it was just 3 days ago. For you it was probably a week ago if you saw the previous video. But I was here and I was exploring an area of land I've not really walked before over in that direction. I did go up to Longdendale Quarry, which is right here. You can see the more familiar view of Longdendale Quarry. I did go up to Longdendale Quarry, which I had been to before, but the rest of the walk was all places I hadn't been to, including St James Church, which you can just about see. Anyway, don't worry if you haven't watched last week's video. You don't need to watch this one and enjoy this one. But on last week's video, I found something quite intriguing. It was simply marked on the map as hay. At first I thought it was a sheepfold with something built into it. But when I was there and looking around, it looked like a farm. It looked like a farmstead, but it was a really weird and unusual ruin. So at the end of the walk last week, I was at the car park and there was a charity cake stand ran by volunteers who were basically fundraising for the church. And they were locals, and I got talking to them and I asked them about hay ruin, and the lady I was speaking to confirmed that it was the ruin of an old farm. She also said that there was another farm ruin and she couldn't remember the name of it, but she kind of pointed in this direction, the direction I'm in now. So when I got home after the walk, I tried to do some research on hay. I really couldn't find very much at all, but I got to looking for this other ruin that she had mentioned, and I found it. And then when I started digging deeper into that one, I found some other stuff as well. The view over to Longdendale Quarry today is quite spectacular with that cloud. So yeah, I was kind of doing some research. I found the farm ruin that she was referring to, and I realized that just like over in that direction there's a sliver of land that I've not walked, over this side as well there is an even smaller sliver of land that I haven't walked. So this track here, I've walked that many times. The Pennine Way, I've walked that many times. And up over there, I've walked that quite a few times as well. But this bit of land below the ridge line there, I've not walked this land before, and I found a couple of things in this area very close, which I want to come and check out. And then for the rest of the walk, I'm going to play it by ear. I've got a few things in mind, but I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to access those locations from this direction. So we'll just have to play that by ear. Right now the sun is shining, but there was some fairly heavy rain on the drive here, and it clearly has rained here, so there may be some showers. It might be a mix of sunshine and showers today, so it may not look like much, but I am now at the site of one of the things that got me really excited for today's walk. Now, on the older maps, there's nothing at all marked here. On the current Ordnance Survey map, it just simply says earthworks, but it is confirmed and verified that this location right here is an old Roman fortlet. And it's highly possible, although there's no evidence for it, it's highly possible that this would have been some kind of settlement, even pre-Roman settlement. So we've got, it's probably very difficult to tell anything by looking at this footage, but where I am with my own eyes, I can actually see quite clearly. I'm kind of on a ridge right now, which would have been a defensive bank. There is a small trench over there, but a much more noticeable trench here. If you look at a satellite image of this area, it's a lot clearer to see that there was something here, although you can't really tell what. So here's the bank, the defensive bank. Here's the inner defensive ditch. I'm kind of on the corner right here, so just there, that's the northern bank. I managed to find a few websites that talked about this old fortlet. I put links in the video description, but they believed there was a Roman road that went along the Longdendale Valley. Right now I'm stood at the northeastern corner, just outside of the defensive ditch. The vegetation helps to distinguish which is the marshy ditch and which is the higher land. So you can see the ditch goes all the way around. At some point a dry stone wall has been built right through the middle of the old fortlet. It's actually very small, so that's the dry stone wall there. So I've just come the other side of it, and you can see it curves around there. So this is the northwestern corner right here. There's the dry stone wall. I'm stood right on the corner. This is quite interesting. I'm not sure what this bit here is. Where that other dry stone wall is, that kind of marks the southern side of the fortlet. When you get down into the ditch, it's a lot easier to see just how high some of these banks are. Obviously, I think the ditches would have been deeper and the banks would have been higher back in those days. So now I'm here, I'm stood against this dry stone wall which goes along the southern side of the fortlet, and you can see once again this has been built over the fortlet. I thought at first that this might have been on the bank, on the southern bank, but here's the ditch, here's the dry stone wall, and then on the other side you can clearly see the ditch continues round, and there's the bank on the other side. So this wall has been, again, it cuts across, but it is interesting because you can see some stones there. I've now crossed over the ditch and I am stood on the site of the fortlet itself, right on the southern edge. Oh wow, lots of boulders, but potentially that could be newer. It does look newer. So hopefully they had a good drainage system with all those ditches around the sides. But today it's quite marshy where the Fortlet would have been. We don't know whether the buildings would have been wooden or whether they would have been stone buildings. If they had been stone buildings, then most of the remaining stones probably would have been incorporated into these dry stone walls. At this point, the dry stone wall, the southern dry stone wall, goes from being on the inner side of the ditch to actually being in the ditch itself, in the middle of the ditch. So now we do have some very apparent ditch. Look at the difference in the height. I'm now stood in the ditch, and you can see how high the banks are. So I really don't know how well it is coming out on video, but when you're here it's really clear to see where the ditch is, where the banks are, and to make out the enclosure itself. You can literally see the ditch all the way around the enclosure. Well, I've just left the area of the Fortlet. Once again, another example of a location where a drone would have been really useful, especially with all the dry weather that we've had. We may have been able to pick up features that are not visible from the ground. Something interesting, you can see something here. You can see drier ground here. There's nothing marked on the map, but this normally is evidence that there was a dry stone wall or something, but there's no such feature marked on the map. Up there are Highstone rocks, and I've walked over the top of those a few times. That's the path that takes you to Lad's Leap, which is just over there. The access land starts just over there. But where I'm walking right now is along a public footpath. Not a permissive footpath, but a public footpath. You can clearly see here that there's like a lower ditch with banks on either side. I'm guessing that's an old trackway. And this is the location that really got me investigating this area, and which resulted in me deciding to do this walk today. So this is actually the site of an old farm, Highstones farm. In front of me is the barn, which is obviously still in use, or has been in use until fairly recently, and is in fairly good condition. But what's interesting is over here. You can see the ruins of buildings. There's a door with a door lintel there. So annoyingly, the access land actually starts at that dry stone wall there. So it's the other side of that dry stone wall, and this is where the old farmstead used to be. The public footpath runs directly in front of the farm, and the access land directly behind the farm. There's a gate, there's no signage, the gate's not locked. Clearly the barn has been in use much more recently than the rest of the farm. Something's covered over here. There's nothing marked on the map, but it could be a well. I'm guessing that's a well. That's what I take to be a well. And then over here you got this, which could also be a well. This does have water in it. And the water level's fairly high, so that's possibly more of a trough than a well, that one. I think I'm too far away to be able to zoom in properly. What looks like an outhouse there. Again, there's no signage and the gate is not locked. There are more ruins over there. There's a stone trough there. More ruins behind. The old outhouse. Now the access land, I believe, is literally just there. But the really annoying thing is I've got no way of getting in onto the access land, no obvious way of getting onto the access land from here. Right, well, I don't know right now what I'm going to do next. I had everything worked out up until this point, and then from this point there were a number of different options, but it all depended on what things were like once I was here on the ground, because when you look on the map there's no obvious way of getting to where I want to get to. It's really frustrating because the access land is just the other side of that wall, but there's no way to get to it. So I'm stuck on the private land. I was thinking about scrambling up to Highstones, but I can actually see a fence up there as well. So I'm still on the public footpath, not that you can tell at all. It goes through that gate and over to that gate, I think. No idea what this is. So the public footpath took me into this field, and then very foolishly I accidentally went the wrong way and came off the public footpath. I've got to this gate. The gate's not locked, it's got no signage, and the other side of the gate is access land, so I'm going to go through the gate. This is not going to plan. Up there is Lad's Leap, this is Coombs Clough. Although I'm now on access land, similar to my last walk, there are lots of barbed wire fences and dry stone walls and barriers stopping me from progressing. I was going to try and get to it from this way, but I don't think I can. I might be able to get to it somehow from the other side of that dry stone wall over there, but it is Look at all the bracken. So yeah, I may have to abandon the plan. I may have to come up with something else. So I've been having a real struggle. Again, today's walk, like my last walk, real problems getting into access land. And then when you're actually into access land, real problems getting from one bit of access land to another bit of access land. Where I am right now is access land. I want to be over there. There's barbed wire fencing and wall over there. There's this really high dry stone wall over here. And there's ditches beneath it. So, well, I'm now moving away from my goal. Still can't find a way to get over this wall. And I'm on the verge of giving up with this objective, because even if I do get over this wall, look at the state of it on the other side. Certainly at this time of year, it's just bracken, high bracken. I'm not sure how long all of that has just taken me. Probably about an hour of very difficult walking, which has ended up in failure, and I'm pretty much back to where I was before. I'm very close to the Highstones farm ruin. I have found this, so I can get through this to get into the access land, I think immediately above the farm ruin. However, this isn't going to help me get over to Coombs Clough, because there are several dry stone walls coming down and fences coming down. And I'm just going to give up on that today. It may be possible to find a way, but it's going to take forever. And who knows, no guarantee that you will. So at the very least, I've succeeded in getting some views from this side of Highstones farm. I think I am going to try and get up to the actual Highstones themselves, but as I think I already mentioned, I'm going to have the same problem, because I can see fence lines, I can see dry stone walls, several fence lines, several dry stone walls between me and those rocks and that high ground up there, even though this is all access land. Well, something's come out of all this hard work anyway, because I couldn't see this earlier. This wall here, or actually this fence line here and that wall over there, that marks the edge of the access land. So where I am right now is literally right on the very edge. That wind's picking up. Doorway there by the looks of it. Although these rooms are very narrow, not very big at all. There is more to see here. There's all the ruins over there, which I might be able to get a slightly closer look at from here, but it is lunchtime and the weather is on the turn, so I'm going to stop and have lunch. I've just had my lunch. The weather is definitely on the change. The wind has picked up. It even rained for like a minute while I was eating my lunch. Had a sudden sharp shower that was literally only a minute long. Now I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get up there. It's not looking good because of all those fences and walls. And even just following along the access land, I know there's walls ahead. So I don't know whether, once I finish checking out this old farm ruin, I don't know whether to just retrace my steps and get back onto the public footpath that I was on earlier. I'm going to make that decision in a few minutes, but I want to have a look at the ruins over here because I've not really looked at those from this direction before, and I did spot something over there which I might go have a look at as well if I can get to it. I've just spotted something on that lintel. There's definitely something on it. I can't make it out from here. So it appears to have the date 1732 on there. It's in very good condition if that is the genuine original lintel. The farmer is now rounding up the sheep. Okay, well, I've seen as much of that ruin as I can from the access land. Whilst I was sat having my lunch, I could see something over here. I wasn't sure what it was. It looks like it might just be a big rock. But I'm halfway up, so I may as well keep going. That was quite hard work coming up here. This grass is very long. That's what I could see. Just a little bit of dry stone wall there, but it is simply one surviving section of a dry stone wall that used to come all the way down, so I don't think it's anything special. Okay, well, I'm going to take a risk. Seeing as I'm halfway up already, I'm going to keep heading up and maybe off to this way in the hope that I can get over the obstacles, can get over the fences and dry stone walls, and can get back that way. Because if that fails, I've got to come all the way back down and all the way back into that field and back onto the path that I took earlier. Hallelujah. So this is what I'm talking about. So where I am is access land. The other side of this fence line is access land. This fence is, in theory, to keep livestock contained. It's not to stop walkers. And really there should be stiles or gates for walkers to get over fences that cross access land. And this is the first one that I've seen. So I've just made a note of the coordinates for this, just for future reference. I will put it on the screen as well for anyone else who's interested in coming out here. And here are the Highstones. Now, if you're anything like me, when you hear of the Highstones, you think of Howden Edge. Obviously, these are different Highstones. And there is a path the other side of them. And above them, I've been along a few times, but I've never come down to the stones themselves. Well, I've never been to these Highstones before. I've been to the Howden Edge Highstones a few times, but never these ones, although I have walked on the path up there very close by. And I'd say it's probably a lot easier to get to the Highstones from that path than to do it the way I've done it, as ever I've done it the most difficult way. Pretty impressive views. I've just stopped for a 5-minute break, and I've noticed the view down to the old Roman Fortlet is really good from here. You can very, very clearly see it. So in satellite imagery and also from a distance, it's very obvious. So we've got the ditch going all the way around it. And from here as well, it looks like there's an old track or an old road coming in that way, and another one, trying to line my finger up, there it goes, another one coming in that way. This is very slow going. Difficult walking. Takes a lot out of you, and you don't make much progress. It may not look far away, and it isn't far away, but it took me 30 minutes of really tough walking to get off the top there to where I am here. Just no path whatsoever, tufts of land, of grass with deep drops. Really tough going, but I've got to the path, and from here on in I will be on paths of one description or another back to the car, so it should be a lot easier now, and there's not that far to go anyway. Good views of Longdendale Quarry where I was last time I was here, but just below it I've just realised that's Brockholes Quarry, which I have visited before. That's the one with the Smithy ruin. I'll put a link on the screen, or a thumbnail image on the screen for you to see. So I've intersected with the Pennine Way at this point here. That's where I've just come down. So here I've got a choice. I can either follow the Pennine Way back to the track I came along this morning and then back down, or I can go this way to make it more of a circular route. So I'm probably going to do this and go down here. It's remarkable how the tall bracken transforms the landscape. This is almost unrecognizable simply because of the bracken. That's how low the water is. I'm pretty much back of the car. That was on the shorter side of my walks. It was a bit frustrating at times. Obviously we couldn't get to all the places I wanted to get to. In the end though, we did get to the Roman Fortlet, which was really cool. We got to the ruin, the Highstones farm ruin, and we ended up seeing that from all angles, and that was really cool as well. And we did make it up to the Highstones, and the views from up there were very dramatic. So I hope you enjoyed that one. Please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, please click subscribe, and I'll see you next time.